Um, hold on. Let's bring up the text. Okay, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We're getting close to the end of this long chapter 80, which deals with different laws. Hold on. Let's just hopefully this page comes up. Okay, here we go. We're in law number 67. Okay, we're going to deal with the complicated laws of building on Shabbos because it's not simple, obviously, to build. Oops, is there a participant trying to get in? Hold on. Okay. There's difficult laws of obviously obvious building is difficult is prohibited, but there's certain things that we don't even know is considered building that is prohibited on Shabbos. So, for instance, the laws of sealing and closing windows or doors or putting in, like, they had old-fashioned doors, hey, Aaron, that would kind of be deposited into door spaces or block, boards that went into window spacing, etc. If you're allowed to put them on Shabbos, I'm going to eventually get to the laws of opening and closing umbrellas and other things that are considered separations or oil to make a tent on Shabbos is not allowed. So these are the laws that we're going into right now. It says, "Kishem she'asur la'aseh afilu binyan ari b'Shabbos, kach asur lahoisiv al binyan kavua." So here he says like this: just like it's prohibited to make even a temporary building on Shabbos, so too it's prohibited to add to even a set building, meaning something that's kavua, something that's a permanent structure. Afilu toisefes aroy, even if what you're adding is only temporary. So therefore, l'chein, Pesach she'eni oisel lechnisa v'yitzia tader elalitim chaykis. You have sometimes doors, we all know we have them, that are not meant to be opened all the time. They're like doors that stay closed, or the people don't use them. Im asel ladelis she'eni seveves al tzireha, if you made a door that doesn't open on its hinges, sireha, so he says here in the parentheses, tzir, who eats a barzel haboilit min hadelis machnisin bechor shlamata ba'askufa ulamayla b'mashkoif. A tzir is like a nail that is a rivet that is on the outside of the top and the bottom of the door that go into a receptacle, which is like a little opening, a hole on the top in the floor and the top, and therefore the hinge is basically on the top and the bottom of the door. That's a type of hinge. So machnisin, that you put these hinges, these metal rivets, bechur shlamata baskufa on the floor, l'mayla b'mashkef in the ceiling, and that's how the door swings open and closed. It could go in or out. So when you have such a hinge, the difference between the regular hinges, the regular hinge, the door only opens one direction. When you have like the nails that are sticking out from the top of the bottom of the door and they go into the holes of the ceiling and the floor, so then the door could swing in or out, right? So same thing applies to regular hinges. So bitzirim ketanim hamischabrim mezuzas haPesach. Okay, so there's in these openings that the door is put there by the opening of the door. So he says so long where is it? A door which does not swing on pivots or on hinges, but rather, okay, so he says over here there is a halachic question regarding a door made for a doorway which is not used frequently for entrance and exit except on rare occasions. So he says Ella shekashra sham usla'a sham linalba. So he says it doesn't have these doors they're not sitting on hinges. So you have a door that's not used all the time, and it doesn't have the hinges the hinges that are on the side of the door and the top of the door that could swing open and close, or to close and open properly with hinges. So how is this? How does this door work? It kind of hangs. And when you're finished or you want to close the door, you kind of seal the space. So it's not a regular door. Im yesh tzir b'delas zu, afilu ein ba'ata ala shahaya latzir v'nishbar u'makay nikar mutar lilnol bal b'Shabbos. If there was a kind of the hinges were there, it's there, but it's not being used. It's just hanging the door, or it was once there, and you could see that it was once there. So meaning to say, there's a clear indication that this is like a kind of door situation. So then you could use it to close on Shabbos, even though it's not being closed now on the hinges. Even if when you open the door now, it's not standing up straight, it kind of drags on the floor. And only when you close it, it kind of lifts itself up. The idea what he's trying to say is that if the door had hinges, obviously, then you're not to close and open the door is okay. Here we're talking about a door that right now doesn't have hinges. It's not a door that's used all the time. That's one of the ideas that we're talking about. It's not your regular door of entry and exit of this room or house. And it's hanging the door, but it's kind of drags. So it's mamish looks like you're building. You're just putting in a board into this space. But because there was once hinges, there were signs of hinges there. So now to close it, because it's just hanging, you have to lift it up and put it in its space. Nevertheless, it's permissible. Why? Because it's hanging. It's not just a board that's being placed. And there's also a sign that there were hinges. So then it's nikar delas The point is that now, although it's not using the hinges, then it's kind of hanging on a rope. But because it's clear that this is a door situation, so it's not considered as if you're building. That's the point. So here there's an interesting thing, that if there's a hinge now, so then it's for sure not a problem. The only problem is that you have sometimes these hinges, like I said, where the door is a regular hinge. So obviously, to create a hinge on Shabbos, to screw it in, that's obviously building on Shabbos. But you have sometimes doors that you could just kind of place it on their hinges. If I'm talking about the hinges that either, for instance, we have in our house in the backyard, we have like a plastic storage that runs on those kind of hinges. At least maybe it once had proper hinges, but now it's like the story of this halacha where the hinges kind of broke. And when you open the doors, the actual the only thing it's holding on now is these little hinges that are on the floor and on the ceiling that kind of snap in. So you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos because that's building on Shabbos. Okay, to put it in initially on Shabbos. And again, this is talking about a door that's not always being used. Let's just now look at the laws on the footnotes here. I don't think there's that many actually. There's 185. The Magen Avram and Shulchan Aruch Harav prohibit only a permanent prohibit only a permanent addition. So he says so here he says that you're not allowed to add a temporary addition. The Magen Avram and the Alter Rebbe, Shulchan Aruch Harav's Alter Rebbe, prohibit only a permanent addition. But if something's already built and it's only temporary, then the Alter Rebbe seems to say that you're allowed to do it. Okay. This is this law. Again, it's not that complicated, but if you wanted, again, the doors that have the hinges that are kind of on the outside, on the bottom and top of the door. So if you want to kind of position it to put it into the hinges, that's not allowed on Shabbos. That's bona. But if it's hanging and you're just kind of stuffing, closing the door, so then it's not a problem. Okay, but he continues. The next law kind of explains the follow-up. If there's no mark of a hinge, also, and it's a hanging door, and it's the door that's not being used all the time. I mean, a door entrance that's not being used all the time. Then he says, then you can't kind of close it up on Shabbos. Because the entry is only used very rare times, and there's no real sign to show that this is a door. It's as if you're kind of building as if you're making a wall. That's the idea. The idea is it a wall that you kind of opening and closing once in a blue moon, or is it a door? So if there's signs to make it show that it's a door, whether there's old hinges, etc., is one thing. But if there's no old hinges and all you have over here is a board, it's like you're literally putting a board in to close up the space. And because it's not being used often, as if you're building a wall. Yes, Aaron.
What if it's okay? So there's these screens. They're literally screens, tape and Velcro. Hold it up, and then there's what do you call it? Magnets in the middle. So you push it open, and then it falls into the magnets. You use it to keep bugs out when you want to keep your like balcony door open.
Okay, and describe this again.
Okay, it's a screen,
Yeah.
literally like material with holes in it, but bugs can't get through it. And on one going up the frame of the door, up, down, and on the very top, it's tape and Velcro. Whatever you the Velcro has like sticky stuff on one side. You stick the Velcro down, then you stick this on the Velcro, and then in the middle is magnets. So as you go through the door, either direction, it opens and then it closes on its magnets, and it just hangs there.
Okay, but that's again, this there you're talking about a situation where it's a regular door that you go in and out. Here we're talking about a door that's like a basement door that's never used.
Well, what about a sukkah door? Because you could use the same thing.
No, but a sukkah door, when your sukkah's up, you're using it all the time. A rear door means like, you have in every house, like in Israel, it's not so common, but it is common. Let's say I have a door, for instance, that's totally blocked up. When I say blocked up means that, we put our suitcases there. It's not necessarily a door that goes to the outside. So that's a door that's very rarely used. So that would be a question if it's almost like a wall. We're talking about a door, so the sukkah is not there the whole year, but when it's there, you're using the doors the whole time. Every time
I
you go in and out of the sukkah.
I guess in Brooklyn, all the houses I know of, I haven't been in every house, but any house that I've been in or apartment, all doors are used. So
No,
this,
but you have sometimes like side doors or doors of basements that are not used really at all.
so like if you never go to your basement except for once in a blue moon, then that door would qualify.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, got
Okay,
it.
but
It's
that would
very
be
confusing.
well.
It was very confusing at first.
No, yeah, what it's trying to figure out is if there's no hinges, and basically it's like you're just putting a board in an opening, so it's almost as if, and you never use that space. It's almost as if, or very rarely use that space. And you're not talking about a door. Like imagine you had a basement door or a closet door in your basement that you never use. That when you're not using it, you have a board in there. It almost
You're
looks as
saying
if
the attic, like
it's
the
part of the
attic,
wall. What?
like an attic.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. So then it's not. Then it's like as if you're boarding it up and creating a wall. So that's what he says. The kivan shapesach any asil pasach elitim rechaykas because you only use this entrance in very rare times. V'hadels any nikeres dedas. This doesn't look like a door. It looks like a board. Near stani ilak my opinion says if you're building you're
So
putting up a wall.
so in my parents' house, you really can't use the attic, but you can go up there to do fixing and stuff. It's literally just a board that's sitting on a hole, basically. But it looks nicer than that.
Okay, so if it no, but saying if there's clear signs of it being a door, but if it's not, there's no hinges, there's no nothing, it's just a board, then it's like, the old attics, I don't know, in Seattle we'd have, I don't know, we have to see if that applies. The old attics that would have would because then maybe it's an oil that would have just a board that sat on the rims, and when you want to go and you push it up and go
That's
out.
exactly what my parents is.
Yeah, so and that could be a questionable. So he says over here, "Ein nikeres kedas v'nirs k'ne ila b'kmei binin. Ach im hi kishura tluya yafa b'inyan sha'av k'shi psucha ein nigras haaretz." But however, if it's tied in such a way, like hanging in such a way that it doesn't drag on the floor, even when it's not being closed, I feel ein goyve min haaretz ela k'malay min nima, even if it's up above the door, just a needle almost, very little amount of space is Nikara Shehidel Mutalino Ba. Then it's clear that it's a door and it's not a board and you're allowed to close it. Im Eine Kishura Tluya Klal. What happens if the board is not closed, tied at all? It's not hanging to the door. And when you open it, you're removing it entirely. It's like a total board. Pesach she'eni us the knisa v'tziyat. Then it's totally prohibited to close it if it's a door that's not used, regularly. Al Pesach ha'oisili kniya v'tziyat, but a door that's used regularly, mutal lino ba afilu ein ba heker tzir. Then even if it's not hanging and it doesn't have a door and it doesn't have a hinge, a sign of a hinge, you could close. Meaning to say, for instance, if let's say the attic that Aaron's is referring to qualifies as such a question. So you have some people that most people don't use it at all. But you have, let's say, a store owner, that kind of access where people are always going upstairs to get supplies. That's different because then it's always being used as supplies. But in a case where where it's very really to go up, in our house we never went up to this attic, so then it's could be questionable. Yes, Barbara.
What about garage doors? Like I have a garage door and I mean, I use it every day, but not, just twice a day. When I go out there to get my car to go to work, and then when I come home in the
Yeah,
evening.
but your garage door is on hinges. It's sitting on
Yes.
hinges, so that's fine.
Okay.
Over here, we're talking about that the door has no connection to the door space.
I
So
see. Okay.
there's no hinges. There's no sign of hinges. They never had hinges. It's basically the thing that we could understand is like really an attic. You have an attic where it's just a board that kind of just blocks the entrance of the attic, and when it's
Okay.
closed, it's just a part of the wall. You know what I mean?
Now it's making more sense to me because
Yeah.
it's like if you put up a partition, like you had an opening, a door, and you put a partition over it or a screen in front of it.
We're going to learn about the partition in a second, but here we're talking about literally you have, let's say, a closet door it's not attached, it's not hanging, it's dragging on the floor, it has no signs of ever being once a door like old hinges, and literally, let's say it's a closet space that's never being used, and when it's not being used, you just have a board that looks like part of the wall that goes in. So by closing it,
Okay.
you're creating a wall.
Okay.
Okay. However, delas ha'asuyam miluach echad. What about if a door is made of one plank of wood? So here's talking about the door is mamish one plank. Ein noel ba pesach shein as lechnis v'tzia tadir. So afil yesh latzirim ein neseveves al tzir. Here he says there's a difference. I guess there's doors that there's not a plank of wood. It's kind of a door that's made up of something else. But if a few pieces, but if it's a door that's made up of a single plank, so then it's even more problematic than what we said before. This would really apply to the attic. If it doesn't actually swing on its hinges. Then you cannot close it because it's literally walling up a space. Because it's only one piece of wood, one plank of wood. And doesn't use its hinges. Clearly looks like you're building and you're closing up an open space. But again, if it's a place that you're constantly entering and closing and leaving, it's like I said, a owner that goes in and out of their attic to get supplies, but then you could be lenient to use even a plank that's not on its hinges. But there has to be a doorpost, so a what do they call it? A floor space that shows that it's a door steel. So if you have a door steel, then you could then it looks like that's not just a wall, and then because you're using it all the time, so then that's enough of a leniency. 186, he says, if the door is made of more than one plank, even if there is no door steel, it's permitted. So if it's used a few pieces of wood, basically, again, if the door looks like part of the wall, then it's more problematic. If the door looks like the actual door itself is made up of a few pieces of wood, and that's not how you would have the rest of your wall. So again, it has less of a look of building. But if mamish is taking a single plywood and putting it in a space and a door that you never use that has no hinges, then it's a problem. Yes, 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 Aaron.
So I'm using this as an example. I saw it on YouTube. Someone has a fun house. He made his house into a fun house. Some of these doors are regular doors, but he hides them because they look exactly like the wall. Like it's a brick wall, and he wants to have a hidden door. But if he fools around with the wall, it it opens up. It pops. Okay, but it looks like if you would see it on its own, you wouldn't know there was a door there. Could you use it?
But yeah, if it has no hinges, no signs of hinges, a single plank of wood, it's a problem. If you don't use it all the time.
No, you don't use a fun house, so you're not always going around looking at all these doors. You have the main doors that you go in and out of the main
Yeah, no,
parts
but,
of the
but, yeah,
house.
but if it has a hinge, that's something else. He said hinges is not a problem. But if there's no hinges,
You can't see it. I don't know if there's hinges or not. You can't see it on the video
I
because it's
know,
so hidden.
I know, but I'm saying I'm telling you practically, if there's hinges, it's different if there's no hinges. If it's just a plank of wood, and then it's a problem.
Okay.
Okay, now the question is, this is more common, which is windows, right? Windows that you want that you go around places till today in Israel. There are people that have pieces of wood that go into the window. So pkak hachaloin, a window shutter, such as a plank, luach ishar kol davar seismim bayes hachaloin, that shut to block up the window. Yoichem nisat may by afilu im eine kosher sham. You could use it even if it's not connected. If you had to have used it already once before Shabbos, it's not the first time you're using it. But at least you thought about using it before Shabbos. But let's say you never closed this window up with this board, and you never thought about it. Because then it's like you're building. You're closing up the window. If it makes sense that you're going to leave it there for a while. A person who's only going to leave it there for a short amount of time. Going beged, if you're just going to put a garment, the kehilchatah by mutar listem by b'cholin, and then it's not a problem. So says the Kehilchatah. Meaning to say, if you have a window and you have shutters, use it. If you have shutters that you've used before, of course you can use it. If you have shutters that you've thought about using, you can use it. If you're just blocking it up with something you never thought about, you never use it, and it's going to be there for an extended period of time, then you can't. But if it's just going to be a short amount of time, it's okay. Okay, that's about the windows. Now, obviously, if we're talking about regular shutters that you use in your windows, it's not a problem because you use it all the time. Israel has what's called the trisim. The trisim are this thick, hard plastic or metal that could literally block your window. It's like as if there's no light comes through. It's not just the window shades. So and it could prevent people from entering or closing that space. So hold on, Aaron. Because it's been used and it's set in there properly, and you've thought about using it, it's different. But if you had such a thing like a board, because you're not allowed to build a tree on Shabbos, but if you had a board, then obviously if you moved into your house right before Shabbos and never closed your shades before, it's still not a problem because it was built to be used for that. So therefore you thought about it before Shabbos. But if you just have a board that you want to plug up your window and you never thought about it before Shabbos and you're going to leave it for a while, then it's a problem. Yes, Aaron.
Okay. The coolest thing I saw in Israel is it allowed to be used on Shabbos?
Say that
So
again.
it's the coolest thing I saw in Israel when I rented an apartment.
Yes.
A lot of people have them. So you have a door to your balcony, but it's not a balcony when it's closed. As soon as you open it, it turns into this really cool balcony, but you built like another room by opening the door or the window. Now
Say
you
that,
can walk out.
say that again. Before that, what was the
Okay,
problem?
it's in Israel. You don't have them. I've never seen them in America. It's a door/window thing for your balcony. So when the door is closed, it's like a window. You have no balcony. When you open it, now it turns into some balcony.
Well, the balcony was always there.
Yeah, but when you have a balcony in America, it's a balcony. You just have a regular door, like you would in your front door to walk out to the world. Now you just walk out to your, like my balcony on the 12th floor. You just walk out. But this would be like everything smushed into the wall and in the house. You have the same space. But as soon as you open these special doors, I've never seen it except in Israel. It turns into like a balcony. Like you have room. It takes it. I don't know how it works, but it's in Israel. It was
I'm
in
not.
Batya when I saw it.
I'm not sure I'm following you, but again, if it's something that's in the system that you're using, like a regular tris, it's not a problem. We're talking about here putting a board or something, or that's going to be there for a while. But it says if it's there, just putting
It's
a
there
garment.
permanently, but what I'm saying is building a room that goes outside.
I'm not 100% following the scenario. I
I
live.
don't know how to describe it any better than I did. It's only in Israel. I actually saw it in Bat Yam in an apartment, and people were telling me, yeah, that they you it makes a balcony. That's the balconies that a lot of people have in Israel in their apartments because it saves space. Instead of having to build a whole balcony, it gives you a balcony when you need it, and it gives you the room when you don't need it. I mean, when you don't need the balcony, it
I
makes your
mean,
room.
in Israel, they close up their balconies. That's common. Yes. Okay. He says 187. Halachti once in 30 days is considered a long time. So if you close it up for 30 days, So then you're not allowed to do it for Shabbos. A short amount of time doesn't mean an hour, it means 30 days. If you're going to block it for over 30 days and it's a board and it's not a beged, it's not something temporary, so then it's problematic. Okay, 72. Telasais v'chaloinais afal pi shehen tluyas al tziri barzal shenakal harsirin al achsirin mikomakim osir b'Shabbos lasirin oy litlaisan ki hatoila oisan havik aboinu v'amisirin havik esaiser. Like this. Doors and windows, even when they hang on iron hinges and are easily removed and reset, nevertheless it's forbidden to remove them or to hang them on Shabbos. This is the problem I said before about putting the hinges within its spaces on Shabbos. Like I said, the doors that I have, I'm not so sure if how it works by my doors because they're broken doors, but in this it's like a IKEA kind of outdoor storage. But if I wanted during the week to take, let's say, chairs out of it, so I have to kind of set the hinges on their little screw that's sticking out. So he says on Shabbos you can't put it in because that's considered a building. If you build it or take them out of the hinges, it's building or removing is like demolishing the space. Okay, 188, he says, he quotes the Taz. Okay, this is a bit of a difficult law, but we have to take it and finish the law, then we'll discuss it. About sweeping. The olden days, the floors were dirt, right? It says, you can't sweep the house. Now, there's a few questions about sweeping. Number one problem with sweeping is if you're going to ruin the broom, break the twigs on the broom. And the other problem is if you're going to be kind of digging of the dirt. It says also the Chabad Sabayis afilu merutzaf ba'avonim oy binisarim. So he says you cannot sweep the house. It's forbidden to sweep the house even if the floor is made of stone and wood, which is what we have today, right? By day ein Yehudi muter, but for a non-Jew it's permissible. For you, let's say you have a cleaner in the house. But if you do it without, not in the non-regular way, using feathers or goose wing, not using a proper broom, then a Jew could use it. Let's see the footnotes on this first. So he says it's forbidden to sweep a house even if it's made of stone. The Ramah, however, so says the Ramah. The Bir Halacha, however, rules that if your house and most of the houses in the city have floors, not dirt, so then he says you may sweep it with a soft bristled broom whose bristles won't break. So then if you're not worried about breaking the broom, the bristles of the broom, so then if everyone is trying to see, my hand is raised. I'm not trying to take it down. But either way, hold on, Barbara. Even if everyone's like today, everyone's house is wood or stone, or it's not, we don't have dirt floors anymore. So then it's permissible if you use a broom that you're not going to break when you're trying to sweep. Yes, Barbara.
I was just going to say like a nylon bristle broom. Those won't break.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
right? The older brooms, I don't know, today they don't have them, but when in the 80s, we were using brooms that were made of kind of wood.
Yeah.
90 and 190 says a non-Jew is permitted even to sweep a dirt floor, even though inevitably we're making grooves. That's the problem. You're making holes. Since it's not your intent, you're not looking to make holes in the floor. It may be done by a non-Jew, so says the Mishnah Berurah. 191, he says, hold on there. 191, he's talking about such as using feathers and goose wing. 191, the Marshal forbids this too, even if you're using a non-regular broom. The Ramah permits it since they are light and make no grooves, using just feathers. But Bir Halacha rules that you may be lenient when doing so in an entirely unusual manner. Okay, Aaron.
Okay. Can you use a manual vacuum? A manual vacuum meaning you push it, there's a circle, like a cylinder on the bottom with bristles, and it just turns and it sweeps everything up into like a cup.
Yeah, that should be permissible on the carpet, you're saying?
Carpet, floor. I used to have one, but
I know that was common. So there's two things. Number one is the issue is with the broom, if breaking the broom, so that wouldn't happen. Number two is that making the holes, grooves in the floor. So therefore, we have today the reason why everyone sweeps their floor on Shabbos. Let's just be practical. There's no one who doesn't sweep the floor on Shabbos. So like Barbara says, today the brooms are not a problem. And number two is very few people have dirt floors today. So it's not the idea that you may end up sweeping when you're in another type of house because you're used to sweeping on Shabbos. So that's not a concern today. According to, I think it was the Bir Allah who says it. So but the main concern over here on Shabbos is that one is you may break the broom, and two is you may cause grooves with in the dirt.
I literally bought that thing just for Shabbos.
Yeah, people, that's called like a Shabbos vacuum. Yes. Now the question, this is more common because we don't live in dirt floors, but people do. If you're on the floor in the sidewalk or in the dirt, can you rub spit if you want to spit on the floor? Which is another question if you're allowed to. But if you see spit, can you rub it with your foot because you're putting it into the ground? You may not rub saliva on the ground with your foot, but you could step on it without rubbing it. By rubbing it, you're making a groove again, so that's a problem. Aser lifnais b'stei near b'Shabbos. A person can't relieve themselves, urinate in a plowed field on Shabbos because it's watering the earth. This is a side law about walking into someone else's field is prohibited if you want to urinate even during the week. It's not your field. Okay, that's laws in another section. 76. This is the question that yes, Aaron.
Okay, in Brooklyn, I don't know in other places, but when you go to parks near your house, in the summer they have water fountains. Sometimes the water may drop to the ground. Are you allowed to drink from those?
You have to be careful. If the water fountain is on the grass, it's a problem because you're going to be very close to it's a very strong chance you may be planting on Shabbos, even if that's not your intention.
No, but this is on
Cement?
dusty ground because the dust flows on these things.
Is it dust on the cement or dirt floor?
No, it's a regular like you would have probably in Israel, but it's dusty. People walk in with dirt and dust and
Dust on the floor is different than a dirt floor.
But some of them are near, pretty close to the.
You have to be concerned. We learned about that on Shabbos to let water out that may go into the field and plant on Shabbos. There's laws about that. We're gonna
Right,
get
I know that, but you're saying you can't spit. That's disgusting. Shouldn't spit anyways. But I'm saying you're drinking water, and for a second you leave it open when your mouth is not around the water, it's gonna spill onto the ground.
We learned about drinking water in a park, you have to be careful. Yes, we learned about this about how certain is it going to be, or how likely is it going to be that water is going to come onto the grass. It makes it problematic based on how often. We learned about it a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago. All right, mechitza afilu hi aris. Now, what about putting up a temporary partition on Shabbos? Im nasis lahater ezadavar. So if it's for the purpose of permitting something, that because of the mechitza, because of the separation, now you could do something. Asr l'asayse b'Shabbos b'Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos because you're creating a space. For instance, this is a question about people who put in. Are you allowed to set up the mechitzas that are, let's say, temporary mechitzas on Shabbos for davening? Because by putting up the mechitzas, you're allowing for men and women to daven together. Otherwise, you wouldn't daven together. And there's also the laws that we're going to learn about that if one has, for instance, holy books in their bedroom on Shabbos, and you want to have marital relationships, you're supposed to try to cover up this farm. If you by setting up the separation in the room, they're making it, so to say, a room that's more appropriate for relationships, you're permitting something to happen. Otherwise, you're not allowed to have relations while there's farm in the bedroom. So these are questions. Are you allowed to create a permissible space on Shabbos? Okay, that's the thing. That because you're putting out this mechitza aris, because you're putting out this temporary separation, now something is permitted. So also last of Shabbos, you're not allowed to put it out on Shabbos because you're creating a space that you couldn't, and now you could use because of the mechitzas. Therefore, A person cannot use even not a wood, but even a villain is like a curtain. For instance, here's something else, not just about Sfarim. Halachically, a person should not have marital relationships in the light. So you're not allowed to turn off the light on Shabbos. But if you want to put a covering over the light, that's going to make the room dark. Now you're creating, by putting this vilon, by putting this separation, partition, by the light, you're making the room permissible for relationships. So a person should have relationships at night. Or like I said before, to block the Sfarim, the holy books. And let's say you're in, you have to relieve yourself. You can't relieve yourself in front of Sfarim. By putting up this vilon, by putting up this separation, now you're permissible to go to the bathroom. So it's not allowed to be done on Shabbos. Because this separation makes something permissible. It's creating a space. This is Aaron, you were talking about creating a space, right? So if you're creating a space, but you're creating a space because it wasn't permissible to use it without the separation. So here, you're not really dividing a room. But by putting a mechitza, you're now making something that was not allowed before to be allowed. Having relationships, urinating, whatever it is, going to the rest, relieving yourself, etc. So because you're creating a permissible space, that's prohibited on Shabbos. And that's as if you're making a tent on Shabbos. If you're not creating like a partition, a mechitza, but you're just stacking up, let's say, towels, so it's okay because you're not creating an oil. Let's say you have old style beds. So instead of, let's say you have a bed in a bedroom and you have Sfarim in the bedroom, right? You want to make it, or you have light on in the bedroom. And you have the old style beds that have bed posts, and on top there's the curtain around the bed. So you could close the curtain. The curtain's hanging, so it's already there. You're just closing them. So he says, if it's already set up, if it's dropping or pulling, if it's coming, if you're dropping it down, or if you're the shade, so to say, or if you're pulling it across. Murti b'Shabbos the farse kula, you're allowed to extend it because it's already there. Because now you're only adding to a temporary tent, so to say. But the part that's, if it's not already kind of there, it's just literally permanently folded up on the side. That little permanent folded on the side doesn't count. It has to be at least extended by one tefach, which is a little bit more than an inch. Because the way it's folded up over there, it's not for a tent, it's just where it's being held. Hold on, Aaron. Let's just finish the law. So too, that's talking about a vilon. A vilon is again like a shade. Or you have what they call a Spanish, the ones that a Spanish wall, that like an accordion. If you want to extend that accordion kind of space, if it's already been a little bit open before Shabbos, then you're only adding. But if it's been totally closed or totally open, opened, but in a way that's there's no space, it's totally against the wall, and there's no little opening space, then you're not allowed to extend it on Shabbos. But if the Spanish, you have simcha walls that go totally against the wall, that doesn't count. It has to be a little extended. Even though when it's together, it's more than an inch, but it's not open at all. It's totally closed. Loy mahani doesn't help. It means to say like this, that any kind of separation, again, this would apply to, you have this more often, let's say, hospital bedrooms, right? So if you have like a hospital separation that you put in by your bed, so it's there, if it's all the way in the back and it's not opened at all, but usually because someone has it a little open. But if you're not trying to permit something, that's not a problem. If you just want to go to sleep, it's different. But if you're permitting something that's prohibited, like in the case of relationships or relieving yourself, so then you're creating a space. And then it's a problem if it's not been extended a bit more than when it's folded and totally open. Okay. Even though by folding it totally open, there's still a little bit of it's not exactly on the wall, It's, a few inches taking up space, but it's totally opened up and it's not extended as a separation at all. Then it's a problem. But if you have a temporary separation, but you're not permitting anything, you just want to, protect yourself from the sun. Or you don't want the wind to blow out the candles. So then then you can do it on Shabbos. We're going to see about roof things. This is wall things. So if you want to open up an umbrella on Shabbos, so you can sit out in the sun, that's a different. If you have an awning that's a little bit open to extend it manually on Shabbos is allowed, but if it's totally closed, it's something else. Yes, Aaron.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up two instances and just tell me how to do it kosher on Shabbos. So I didn't know you had to be in dark. It's daytime for a marital relation. Now, do you have to close the drapes, and how do you do it, and when can you do it to be kosher? And the other law is you mentioned about you have to take out all the books that are religious out of your bedroom, out of the space where you go to the bathroom. So let's say you are a person who is, it doesn't happen to me, but I know people who does. They leak in the night, let's just say, because uncontrollable bladders. And they wear protective material, but they're going to the bathroom and someone brings a book in. You have to take the book. You shouldn't bring any books in at that point. And if someone brought one in by accident, like your wife, and she forgot, or you brought it in and your wife's the person, then how do you take it out on Shabbos? Or can you? Or is it not a problem? Those are the two questions.
A book is not muktzah. You can take it out. Number two is a person who has who's suffering from that is different because usually you're under the blanket, so it's kind of a separation. Anyways, what we're talking about when we're talking about relationships, so if it's light outside, so the halacha is you darken the room, close the shades. But the halacha is one should not be having relations in the open light. Yes,
Okay,
Rebecca.
so you can wait. So you didn't tell me how to close the drape. You did, but it's all confusing because if it's folded, if it's
No, if it's Shabbos.
yeah, we're only talking about Shabbos here.
Okay, so again, if you have it in such a way that, no, if we're talking about window shades, is something else. What we're talking about over here is that you're making a separation within the bedroom itself. Let's say you have a candle, a light in the bedroom, so you want to block the light out. So here you're separating the space. But let's say you have something around that, a shade that would go between the bedroom and between the bed and the light that would darken the room. So now you're creating a permissible space. Or if you had, let's say, sperm you had books on a bookcase, and you had, let's say, something like a wall or something that could separate, that closes, but it's totally open. But now you're totally creating a permissible space. It's problematic. For instance, let's say some people have a closet, and in the closet there's holy books, right? And there's a totally open space, and now you're totally using, let's say, that kind of Spanish closing that's not been open at all. So now you're creating a permissible space. If it's opened a little bit, tefach is like 3 inches. So if you're blind or your Spanish door, let's not too long ago, that was a common thing to have like a kind of an accordion separation that was like in the closets, right? If that's totally open and there's farm there, now you want to close it so you can have relationships, it's problematic.
So what do? You just you can't do it, or you wait till after Shabbos, or there's a way to do it kosher.
You're not supposed to have, then you can't have relationships. You're not allowed to create a temporary space on Shabbos.
I never heard of these. I mean, I know you could. I heard that you can't put books on your bed, Jewish books. You shouldn't pray in your bedroom. But then sometimes my son prays in his bedroom, and after hearing that, I get confused. But I figure my son knows better than me. He goes to yeshiva more than I ever did. So, what's your take on this?
I'm just saying, to have a sperm in your bedroom is not a problem. The problem is to have relationships when the sperm is there. That's all.
So you can read, you can pray in your bedroom. You just can't do certain things.
When you want to have marital relationships or urinating or relieving yourself, etc., that's a problematic. That's what he's saying. And by covering this farm, you're creating. Listen, the fact is like this: some bedrooms you go in there. Let's say it's not your house. You go into bedroom. Some bedrooms have farm. There's a shelf there, and the people in the house have books there. And the whole wall of books, you have to cover that space.
Does changing your clothes when you get naked have any? You have to cover them too.
Yeah, also it's not appropriate. That's
Wait,
not.
so that's my question actually. Like when I go to families, because I'm not married, they put me in the room with Sparrim.
Yeah.
Like, so
All,
like how do
all
you,
the time.
are
All
you,
the time. Yeah, that's something that happens. You have to be so some people so let's say whatever. I mean, you're not going to go into laws of everything about how one behaves in as a guest. That's other laws, but just in the concept of it, if you're in a room, because it's not regular in your own house to have books, but you
right,
the guest in a room that's kind of a office slash extra bedroom.
right.
So yeah, it's so to create a permissible space on Shabbos is a problem. If
Wait,
you
so how do
if
you
you
change into pajamas or whatever, or get dressed in Shabbos morning?
so therefore you should try to cover it before Shabbos.
But we used
Cover
to.
the books? Cover the Sparrim?
Cover this firm. It's not appropriate.
But when my son was younger, we used to, I'm just saying, we used to have, the rabbi gave us for going to the children's service and winning a prize. It was the nighttime Shema in a little book, and we used to place it by his bed. And we changed.
That's fine. That we're talking about marital relationships and we're talking about sleeping. It's not the same thing.
No, but we're talking about he changed his clothes in his bedroom. Even to this day, sometimes he has a book in his on his desk because his desk's in his bedroom, and he was studying it for his yeshiva, so he wants to review it.
We're not learning the laws of derech eretz now. But if in the laws of derech eretz, a person in general should not even be getting dressed naked in their bedroom. You should be getting the halach. If you open the Shulchan Aruch, a person is supposed to be getting dressed in under their blanket. Obviously, for children, it's more difficult. If you want to talk about the strict letter of the law,
Yeah,
then
I like to learn what it is, and then we
okay,
can learn to bend it.
we're not holding there now. These are the laws of modesty. In the laws of modesty, it tells us how one dresses in general in the bedroom.
Okay.
It's not appropriate to stand naked in your bedroom in general. That's
Also, I guess there's like, there's ways to like change clothing where you stay covered, where you do like one part
yeah,
at one thing at a time. So maybe that's a better option.
exactly.
Thank you.
But I like I'm talking about like going to like a Rav of a community. Like they're very frum. Like why would they have someone sleep in a room with Sparrow if it's an issue?
It's a good. I'm telling. It's not something. What you're describing is not uncommon. I've experienced it many times. But like you said, when you visit a house, and a lot of times you go to a house, as a guest, you're going to be in a bedroom that is used slash for storage of
Hmm.
or as an office of Sfarim. And yeah, it's problematic. It's problematic. There's a halachas, for instance, about relationships in a guest when you're a guest in someone's house in general. That we're not talking about those laws, but if you're
Right.
laws of in general, if you happen to be in such a house and this farm, it's problematic.
Um,
You have to block this farm.
right. So what if let's talk about what you mean by Sparrim. Like what if it's only like art scroll books in English, you know what I mean? And no Chumashim, no Tanakh, no Gemara, you know what I mean? It's just like
If
English books.
if the text is not Hebrew text at all. It's not the text of Sfarim. But it depends. It depends. That's another question about what's considered Kisvei Kodesh, what's considered holy books. If it's just someone writing ideas or Jewish history stuff like that. But if it's
Right.
that are
Ideas
connected
on the Parsha or whatever.
but if it's something that's connected to Torah, let's say an English book on the Shulchan Aruch or the English book
Hmm.
on it's literally it's quoting halachas. The difference is if it's quoting ideas is one thing, but if it's quoting the laws, the Mishnah in English, the Talmud in English, that's still safer.
Okay. Thank you.
Aaron, quickly because I want to do footnotes
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
close.
yeah. I'm just gonna say what my rabbi said. If English or Hebrew doesn't matter. If it's talking about something Hashem would teach you if he was here in front of you, basically you you got to treat it as a form. But if it's one of those books that's just a story, but it happens to be sold in the Jewish stores because it's based on Jewish stuff, that's not the same thing. But like any topic that you know it could be described in English. It could be a whole English book, but it's a topic that describes something Jewish. You should just respect it.
Okay, thank you. Let's just do okay 194. Let's just see if we can finish up quickly these footnotes. It is forbidden only. We're talking about. We're talking about like this. With certain with a curtain or anything similar to block out the light when or a candle in order to permit marital relationships. So he says like this. It's forbidden to block out the light only when the partition is 10 tefachim high. Means at least about 10 tefachim is about let's say about a foot and a half, 10 tefachim high, and does not block out the light from above. Then the marital relationships are permitted only because of the partition, which acts as a wall separating from the light. Because of the wall, the light is considered as coming from another room, and in such a case, they must be totally covered when engaging in marital relations. In this case, the curtain must be tied down so that it will not blow, and in the wind. For otherwise, it's not considered a wall. If, however, the partition completely blocks out the candlelight, it permits marital relations not because it serves as a wall, but rather because it covers the light. Therefore, you may make such a partition on Shabbos. The same rule applies to Sfarim. Mishnah Brura agrees that we may be lenient when it's absolutely necessary, since the Rambam permits making a temporary wall for this purpose. Okay, so this is a very important footnote. He says there's two things over here. There's one thing of creating a separation. A 10 tefachim is what's called the minimal wall. Like in sukkahs, if you have to have a wall, right? We have to have 4 walls or 3 walls, 2.5 walls for a sukkah. What's the halachic definition of a wall? A halachic definition of a wall is something that's 10 tefachim high. That's a separation. 10 tefachim is, again, it's about 30 inches tall. Okay, so if you have a wall that's about 30 inches tall, and so by creating it, then you're making it another room. So the light now is coming from another room. It's not that the light is in your room. The light's coming from another room because now there's a wall. So then it's problematic. But and then you have to create a wall that doesn't blow, because it's like a sukkah. If you have a wall that just blows in the wind, so it's not a ruach mitzuya, that a regular wind comes, the wall moves, then it's still not good because it's not considered a wall. So here we're talking about creating a wall. So if you're going to put out those things that are actually a separation, that's a problem. But here we're talking about putting a what's it called, a linen, let's say, which is not a strong wall. So it has to be positioned with strength, and then you're creating a separate space. But if you're just dropping something like a shade that darkens the room, that's not a separation. Then you're just darkening the room. That's different. So he's saying, he's being lenient, that if you're dropping, let's say, a shade that just totally, it's not creating a wall. I'm not sure how it applies to this farm, to be honest with you. The light is that you're blocking out the light. But here he's saying that if you're just kind of making that this farm are covered, so it's more permissible than if you're creating a wall. The problem is the creating the wall that creates a permissible space. So if you're just taking, let's say, a curtain, that you're not creating a wall, and the curtain could blow, but now they're totally blocking out the Sfarim. So the Sfarim are not there anymore. So it doesn't have to be a wall. It just has to be that the Sfarim are not in your space. Like the light is not in your space. But if you're creating a wall to make it a separate room from the space of the Sfarim or the space of the light, then it's a question if you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. And he says that if it's that there's room to, even if it's just temporary, then it's for temporary purposes, it's still permitted. But it doesn't take away the fact that you need to get rid of the problem, which is the Sfarim or the light. The question is if you're allowed to create that space on Shabbos, if you're totally blocking and you're not making a wall space. Okay. This has to be analyzed more, but we're short of time, so we're just going to leave it at that. 195.
Yeah. I have a question. What about if it's just Hebrew books in the room, in the bedrooms, that there's like a novel, but not Torah?
No, that's not a problem.
What about if I have a Torah book, they're like Chumash and whatever, Mishnah or Kabbalah, and I cover it with the fabrics? If it's in the room, I cover it, with something.
So what he's saying is that if the fabrics are totally covered, it's not that you're creating a wall. From footnote number 194, I think it was. It says it seems like it's permissible. I just want to see it again. He says, however, the partition completely blocks the candlelight. It's permitted for relationships. It says.
No, when not in a relationship, just like sleeping in the room, not even get naked.
Sleeping in the room is not the problem. The problem is the sleeping in the room, this farm is not such a problem. That's not the problem. The problem is doing something that's not sniut in your bedroom. That's not modest. I mean, it's not that anything's wrong with it, but when you're having relationships, you have to make sure not to have Sfarim exposed at the time. He says the same applies, the rules applies to Sfarim. Okay, yeah.
If it's not mute, but I have the book's cover and a fabric or whatever, it's okay.
And it's okay, yeah. It is permitted to make a partition. This is the question I asked. Rebecca, did you have a question? Your hand is up. Okay. This is the question I was wondering. It says about making machitza to daven. So he says it is permitted to make a partition between men and women in order for them to listen to a sermon. So says the Mordechai and the Mishnah Brura. It doesn't say about davening. But if you want to separate men and women at a talk, you're allowed to do it, even though you're putting out a machitza on Shabbos. Again, most shuls don't have it, but in a lot of shuls today, like when we grew up in the shul that I grew up, the machitzas were moving all the time. Okay, 196 is just a reference. 197 is talking about. We're talking about it because it's not intended to serve as a tent. But the ruffled part of the curtain, which is always hanging at the end of the bed, is not included in the tefach because it's not part of the tent. It means if the part that's squished together, that's always there, that's not considered extended. More exactly, it is not there to serve as a wall. The Chai Adam says that. So the part when the thing's totally open, even though it takes up space, that space is not part of the wall. 198 is Spanish wall, okay, folding wall. 199, it has to be a tefach. That if it's open just at one tefach, which is about 3 inches, then to extend the opening is okay. All right, everyone, let's stop here. Any last short questions? No? All right. Then thank you for joining. And these are we went a little fast at the last part of the laws, but just to break it down, but the footnote 194 says, which is important. First of all, he says about creating a machitza for a sermon. I'm assuming the same thing would apply to davening. To move a mechitza on Shabbos to separate a room, which we do sometimes in shuls where you make it a women's section and men's section. It seems like that's permissible. It seems like it because the sermon I wouldn't assume is different than tefillah, but maybe I'm wrong. Number 2 is 194. He says is that the issue of creating a wall is the issue of the wall, not so much the blocking of the light. So if you're putting something that totally blocks out the lights, then it's not a question of a wall. It's just a question of blocking out the lights, then it's different, then it's permissible. Yes, Aaron.
So just say the Shabbos lights that twist.
I'm thinking about that too.
So those are permissible.
Permissible because you're not creating a wall, you're just darkening the space.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Laila Tov, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.